Imagine you just poured your heart and soul out in a performance, playing one of your favorite songs, whether it be original or a cover, and you're really killing it, you know? And as soon as you finish the song, silence. A bad gig can be one of the most disheartening things a group can go through. It can occur for multiple reasons: lack of practice, playing for the wrong crowd, equipment malfunctions. But the first reason your head might go to is, we suck. But having a bad gig is a valuable opportunity to reflect and improve on your craft/performance. I'm not a very happy person, okay? I'm very negative. So I get how a bad gig can get inside your head. I don't want you to feel discouraged from performing because of a few tough crowds. So here is how to handle a bad gig. This is the part where the script is gone. You can kind of feel a bad gig as you're playing it, okay? Oftentimes the feeling is accompanied by a lack of energy. Maybe you feel a little sluggish while playing. You're trying to smile and crack jokes, but it's just falling flat.
In the early years, it's kind of how it goes.
This was written in high school.
Maybe while you're playing, you find yourself making mistakes that you almost never make. And instead of feeling energized after every song to keep going, you feel more and more disheartened. So what kind of copium are you going to take? How do you cope with that? As soon as the gig is over, first and foremost, try not to really think about the gig, okay? Because, yeah, you didn't feel good, but that's that. There's not much you can do about the gig anymore. Just somewhat keep it to yourself. Talk to your band about the gig after you've packed up and left the venue, okay? I personally think that's a good idea because you don't really want to show the venue that you are displeased, okay? Because as bad as it sounds, you kind of have to pretend like you're having the greatest day of your life so that they feel good and they'll hire you again. So it's best not to talk bad about the establishment, the crowd, or anything involving the venue in the venue. Wait until after the gig to really talk about it. I highly recommend you always record your gigs, whether it be a video recording or an audio recording. Just put your phone somewhere so you can get footage of what you did. Because that way, after the doom and gloom or the high that you get from performing is gone, you can objectively analyze your footage. Plus, it's good for marketing because now you have clips to work with. Try to be mature, try to be a professional, because that's what you are, a professional. Try not to whine. Don't be too much of a crybaby about it. Just, you don't feel good, but let's just pack up, let's get out of here, okay? These are things you do immediately after the bad gig, okay? When you go to the restaurant that you go to after a gig with your band, you can all kind of like talk about it. If you feel bad about a gig, more likely than not, the other members also feel bad about it. So you can kind of talk about it, whether you talk about it seriously, like actually trying to like come up with strategies for next time, or just joking about how bad it was. It's still okay to be a little upset about it. But, you know, be a champ. Joke about it. Have a good time. These are just coping mechanisms you can make use of right after the performance. But now that we've got the feelings out of the way, maybe it's been a day or two since the gig, let's do the actual objective strategies. You have to have a feedback loop. Even when you have good gigs, everything must have a process from idea generation to execution, feedback loop, back and forth, okay? When you're implementing a strategy, you need to have a cycle in which all the processes have a feedback loop where it comes back to the idea generator and they can tweak it so they can continuously make improvements as the process is going. So this gig was an idea, it was rehearsed, it was executed. And now, regardless if it's good or bad, you need to have a feedback loop. You need to analyze the footage I asked you to record and start looking at, I don't like how that part sounded. Or that part was really good. And start analyzing the footage, analyzing the audio, whatever you have. Remember earlier when I mentioned reasons a bad gig could happen? Use those as a bit of a skeleton, a checklist of what a bad gig might be made out of. Because that's the thing about a bad gig. Sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes you really were just a fish out of water. You were just in the wrong place with the wrong crowd. But there are also times where you just genuinely weren't performing at your peak. First, look at the objective truths, things outside of your control, like the crowd. Maybe you're more of a country band and you were playing for a metal crowd. Or maybe you're a metal band and you were playing at somebody's 5th birthday party, Sometimes you're not in the right place. See what caused you to be in that situation. Was it because you signed up for the venue without really thinking about who was the crowd? Did you not take the time to look and see who the crowd is? Or was it just a favor you had to do regardless if you wanted to or not? And so now it's just like, well, it wasn't the best crowd, but hey, it was a favor. It was something we did because we owed somebody, Those things are outside of your control for the most part. When it comes to reasons like that, it's not really because you're a bad band. You just didn't play for the right crowd. The way I always said it was, they loved us, but they didn't like our songs. In those situations, I think it's really good because crowds that don't really like you because of taste, I feel like those are probably like the best and worst crowds to play for. Worst because, well, they don't like you and they really pay no attention to you and you feel like, wow, I'm playing to a brick wall. But they're the best because they don't care about you and they're not paying attention to you. So whenever you do something genuinely clever, they're like, hey, that was pretty good. I like that one. And so that gives you a hint like, okay, that one thing I did is just objectively good. It doesn't matter who I play it for, they're going to like it. So in those situations, that is a really good opportunity. It's a really good moment to really try stuff and really try to sell everything you do because you will get a genuine reaction as to whether or not it sucks. But that's usually when you're playing for the wrong crowd. Okay, that's that kind of a bad gig. But you also have the bad gigs that are because of equipment malfunctions. Those things are also a bit outside your control, but there's also, there's a lot of user input as well. It's one of those woulda, coulda, shoulda moments where it's like, oh, I didn't change the strings on my guitar like I said I would. Now my string broke mid-performance. Golly me. Or you're performing and you're playing well, but for some reason the mix just isn't working. There's too much feedback or someone's too loud. Or once again, that's not really in your control. There's not much analysis that can really be done there other than, oh, geez, this venue might suck, let's not play here anymore. Or, this was good, however, we really should have brought our own mics because their mics were awful. A lot of those things can't really be discovered until after the fact. You won't know until you actually go there and do it and find out, oh, geez, this place sucks, And it helps because, there are certain venues, like, for example, when you're playing in someone's backyard, and there are a lot of things that are working against you. You're outside, so the sound doesn't balance that well. There's mosquitoes, humidity, no wind, it's hot. Those kinds of things are unpleasant, and they might make you think, all right, after this, we're no longer playing outside gigs. We will only play outside if there is shade or if it's in someone's garage, but we are not playing outside anymore. Those kinds of things. Once again, these are reasons the gig felt unsatisfactory that are outside of your control. It's important to discern whether or not that was the case, because the last thing I want you to do is beat yourself up thinking, oh, we should have performed harder, we should have done this and that. Sometimes you objectively just can't do more than what you're doing because it's not the right crowd. Like, I mean, we've had plenty of gigs where we've had 4 people in the audience. And it's disheartening, man. And you can't help but think, damn, what am I doing wrong? The only wrong thing you did was waste your time. It hurts, but then after a while, you're like, hey, we played well. Especially if you record it, like I said, and you look back, you're like, yeah, we played really well. Sucks that nobody was there to really appreciate it. So those things aren't really your fault. So now let's talk about the ones that are your fault. Life happens. It always does. I get that. You can't really be too upset because, there's a lot of things that are going to happen outside your control, as I stated earlier. However, these things are more nuanced in the sense that there was a lot of user input, and there really was a lot of alternative solutions you could have done, but you just didn't do. One of the biggest ones in these situations is a lack of practice. Maybe you were just a little extra busy this week. Maybe you guys didn't meet up as much as you should have. Maybe you didn't listen to the songs. Maybe you didn't listen to maybe this, maybe that. There's a lot of reasons. But a lack of practice genuinely is really just on you, the group. This is going to sound very hardcore, but it's like there's no reason why you shouldn't know most of these songs by heart by now. Of course, that depends on how long y'all have been together. But if y'all been gigging for months, you should know these songs. Now, that's just me being a prick. Now, that's just me being harsh. When it comes to being unprepared, I don't think I'm being disrespectful when I say that really is just you. That is just you and your group. Now, I can sit here all day just insulting you and saying how incompetent you are, but you probably already feel that way because you just did a gig that, in a way, proved that point. So, going back to the scenario, it's been a couple of days since the gig happened. You're cool. Now you analyze the footage. You've seen what you did right, what you did wrong. And now it's next band practice. It's time to talk about it with the group. It's time to talk to them and say, look, I've been looking at the footage. You lead guitarist, on a couple of spots, you really were shining. It was great. But I could tell you weren't confident, and that's why in some spots I could hear you hitting wrong notes and you just stopped playing completely. Or, bass guitars, there was parts where you were playing and you just stopped playing because you lost your spot. Or even you, like if you're the vocalist, you're like, there was a lot of parts where, I was singing fine, but, as soon as I got to this certain part that I haven't really practiced, my voice just kept cracking, and it really ruined the performance, It's just presenting objective criticisms. And I say criticisms, not complaints or not insults, because a criticism means you're acknowledging a flaw, but also presenting the positives, negatives, and hopefully a solution. And when I say solutions, I don't mean bringing like a whole list and like regime for the person to fix their problem. Like I said, more likely than not, the player, the member, whatever, feels dissatisfied as well with the performance. So they are well aware of what they didn't do right. All you can really do is acknowledge to them, yes, I'm aware of our shortcomings, but I'm also confident in our ability to correct it. And giving them that space and that faith that they can fix it themselves. Now, of course, if after a couple of practices the problem persists, now you actually have to say, look, are you gonna practice that part or not? Because if you're not, we're just gonna cut you. Because we can't keep having these issues. Hopefully you don't get to that part. Hopefully your band's made up of equally motivated people, so you're all trying. Because there's gonna be situations where you have somebody who just doesn't put in as much as you, and that's a whole other situation. But in terms of a band that just had a bad gig and you're trying to rectify it, you're trying to fix it, that's usually the approach you want to have, is acknowledging that there were issues, but having faith in the group to do better. But if you do the same things and expecting different results, you are insane. So there also has to be a fundamental change in the way you do things. Maybe you were a bit too laissez-faire. Maybe you were a little bit too loose in practice, letting everybody just do whatever, and you slacked off a lot. Maybe you spent 30 minutes actually practicing, but then like an hour goofing off. Look, personally, I think downtime during practice is great. However, do what you have to do now, and then relax. Don't leave for tomorrow what you can do today. So if you can fix a problem right now in this practice, fix it, and don't leave it for the next week, because then next week there's going to be a whole other mess of problems. So it's better to fix it now than to let it persist. I recommend, after you look at the issues you had at that previous performance, it's good that you write down things that you feel are the problems and potential solutions you have for it, and then really discuss it with the band. Have the paper out, sit everyone in a circle and talk to them like, look, I saw this, I don't really like that, I saw this, maybe we could do better. That way you have an objective list of things you can fix up. Some of those problems can be fixed through just one practice where maybe it's like a cueing problem, maybe people just have to listen, but hey, listen to me when I count off better. But some of them are a bit more personal, a bit more fundamental, where you have to tell somebody, hey, you know, this is the problem. I don't know how you're going to fix it because it's really up to you. Just do your best. It's up to that member to fix it on their own. But I also recommend writing down stuff that you really liked. Like looking at what you did really well, you know, showing people, hey, in this one part I thought it was really funny when you made that joke. Or I really liked the riff you played on that one part. Holy God, that was really good. And just saying overall, or just ending it with overall, it was a bad gig, but hey, I know we're good. So we can fix these with no problems. And if y'all have created a really strong bond, almost familial, then like with any family, you're going to have problems. But then you're going to fix it. You're going to gloss over it. It'll be over in a jiff. It's just one little pebble on the road. It's important not to let that feeling of dissatisfaction, that discouragement, become a poison in your heart that ruins the experience of being in a band for you and ruin the experiences of the band for you. It's important to not let these feelings fester within you and not bring them up, because you're just bottling up those issues, and one day, you know, the band will do something that you just cannot accept and you're going to blow up on them. Establishing a relationship where we're all friends, but we can also talk to each other when we feel dissatisfied with the performance or when we feel something could have been better than what it was, will allow everyone not to take things personally, but also be open to always trying to be better. You're always trying to improve and make each and every performance cooler, flashier, or just much more authentic, whatever that means, to your audience. Because ultimately that's all you are. You're a show, and you want to give a good show to whoever's listening. So in a way, it's not even about your feelings. You owe it to your audience to give them a good performance. And the only way you're going to do that is doing research and analysis, always learning, being open to learn, being understanding that you're never going to give the perfect performance, and there will always be something that you could have done better, but also acknowledging when you did do stuff that was just really hype, really great, you know? So while the experience in of itself of having a bad gig might kill your spirits, ultimately you should welcome it with open arms and be happy that you had it, because it showed you something that could have been, it showed you something you didn't know. It gives you an opportunity to do something new, better, and really give an even stronger performance next time. But most importantly, don't forget to fall back on your band. Talk to them. Joke about it. Because that's going to be the thing that really makes it all worth it in the end. When you're all having fun together, playing the best gig you could ever imagine. Weather is clear. Okay. So, what advice do you have for people when they have a bad gig?
Don't let it get to you. Truly.
Why are you so serious?
Yeah. No, I mean, truly, don't let it get to you. It's just one bad gig, and you'll have many more. Honestly, you'll have many more. But as long as you know what you need to do next, because truly trials bring, the freedom of it. So you know what to do. You know what mistakes not to make. Don't be afraid of being cringe.
Because you know that.
I am one of the cringiest. Don't be afraid to be cringe, because you know a lot comes out of it. You know what not to do and how not to act, and then you know what works. So, and actually practice that too.
And don't forget the days the gigs are. Don't arrive late.
Bro, you coming at me? That had nothing to do with the question.